This is 82 minutes of the Dark Shark Nebula. Before I processed it, it looked like this. The individual frames were almost unrecognizable. I fell in love with Dark Nebulae over the last year and a half, and this image of the Dark Shark Nebula that you just saw has been my absolute favorite, with a close second being this Gecko Nebula. They were both captured with my ASCAR 91F and the ASI 2600 MC Pro Astrocam from a Bortle 3 location in New England. I initially aimed to get about 6 hours of data of the Dark Shark Nebula, but the weather had other plans, and I only ended up getting 82 minutes of data, and I made the best of it. And in this video, I'll show you my PixInsight workflow that I used to take the image of the Dark Shark Nebula to something that I really love today. The steps today will include cropping, plate solving in SPCC, an optional dynamic background extraction, correct only blur exterminator, star removal, then some quick noise exterminator, stretching with generalized hyperbolic stretch, although you can use other methods, blur exterminator post stretch, heavier noise exterminator, curves adjustments, selective color correction, star stretch, and image blend. If you want a serial version of this tutorial, let me know in the comments below. And to help you follow along, I'm actually going to include my stacked fits file of the Dark Shark Nebula so you can download it for free and follow along. Patrons on Patreon already had access to this file for a little while, along with ad-free access to this video. Everyone else can get it from the link on Buy Me a Coffee, which includes a bundle of the image as well as the process icons that you'll see in PixInsight. Supporters on Buy Me a Coffee as well as here on YouTube also got early access to this video and the files as well. You'll also find in the description below links to all the repositories of the scripts that I used in this video so you can copy, install, and follow along. The scripts include generalized hyperbolic stretch, image blend, selective color correction, SETI Astro star stretch, as well as the 3 exterminator tools, including star exterminator, blur exterminator, and noise exterminator. The exterminator apps are not free, but there are free alternatives. For example, for star exterminator, you can use StarNet. For blur exterminator, you can use the built-in unsharp mask tool. And for noise exterminator, you can use Graxpert, which is also completely free. So now let's get to the demo. As mentioned earlier, on the right hand side I have all my process icons. I will have them available for download so that you can follow along as they are. And they are roughly in the same order in which I'll follow them, some minor changes that I'll go over. So I already loaded my image of the Dark Shark Nebula. This was stacked in serial using my OSC pre-processing script. It consists of 41 frames of 120 seconds each, which is a little bit strange because as we do STF and unlinked STF, you'll see that it looks a little bit weird because the framing is a little bit weird. So I tried doing a larger mosaic, and the second night didn't pan out. So when I zoom in, you can clearly see a border where the signal to noise is so much worse here. So this actually helps me decide how to crop this. So I'm just going to crop out this edge piece there. So the way to do it is to do dynamic crop, and I'm just going to bring the corners down. I'm going to zoom in and try and get as much of the good signal area as I can. All right, and when I have that, I'll click the green check to apply, and it'll say astrometric solution is going to go away. It's no problem. The next thing we want to do is plate solve to get our astrometric data back. But before we do that, if you want, you can reorient this because you'll see that this is a little bit upside down backward. This is just how Cyril spat it out. So you can go to image if you want to do this. Go to geometry, and you can do like a vertical mirror. I think this is more normal of the orientation. It doesn't really matter. You know, space doesn't have an up, down, left, right, etc. So once you're satisfied with the geometry, you should do this before you do plate solve because otherwise that'll remove the plate solve data. You can open your plate solve. So I have the icon here. It opens this, so you click on the little green apply global, or you can go to script astrometry and you do image solver. But I'll just click on the little global apply and it'll open this window here. Make sure active windows is selected, so it'll pick up the RA and declination automatically if it's in your fit header. If it is not, you can click on search for this object, which I think this is LDN1235. There we go. And you can see that the RA and the declination roughly matches. It's just the center point for my image is a little bit off. So I'll close this, then I'll click on OK, and it'll plate solve. All right, that plate solve, so we can close this. And next we want to do is we want to do SPCC, or spectrophotometric color calibration, to make sure that the colors of our image and our stars are accurate. I have this set so that it automatically selects the Sony UV IR cut filters for the red, green, and blue. If you have a different camera, different sensor, different filter, make sure you select your proper ones. If you're using narrowband, you can also select narrowband filters mode and put in your wavelength and bandwidth manually. But for me, it's just going to be RGB and UV IR cut. I'll let it generate graphs this time, and then I'm just going to click on this little triangle arrow and drag it onto the screen, onto the image, and let it do SPCC. Okay, that done. So I'm going to close that. I'm going to open STF once more. And go. Star colors are looking pretty nice. The next thing I normally do is I would do a dynamic background extraction. And one thing to keep in mind is that you may want to actually do this next part two different ways. You can make a copy of this, click and drag the identifier here, and it'll automatically create another copy for you. And you can do one with dynamic background extraction and one without dynamic background extraction. I think DBE is more required when I do imaging from my Bortle 8 back here, and I have a lot more sky gradient. But I took this from a Bortle 3 location, and you can see that there's actually no gradients at all that I can see. And since my processing script, my stacking script does dynamic background extraction on each of the individual frames, that helps a lot too. So for this tutorial, I'm actually going to skip it, but I'll show you what I normally do, which is the edge DBE. And you'll see that I have these boxes pre-selected around the edges. And that's because I find that it's a little bit more forgiving to nebulosity in the image. Otherwise, it'll end up removing nebulosity because it'll mark those as the background. And then when you see these boxes around like actual nebulosity, like right here, you can select it and you delete it, select it and delete it, and then you can put some more around where you'd normally see like background. But like I said, I'm going to skip this. I would challenge you to try it twice and see what your image looks like. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do Blur Exterminator. If you don't have Blur X, it's okay, you can skip this step, but I only do a correct only. That'll help me fix my stars. So I'm just going to click and drag this, and it'll take a few seconds. All right, that completed, so I'll close this. We can go back and forth. You can see just what happens. Just the stars get a little bit tighter. Okay, that's great. So now I'm actually going to remove the stars. So you can open up this process window here, you can click and drag this, or since there's nothing else to change here, you can actually click and drag this entire process icon onto this image and let it do star extermination. All right, that's done. You can kind of see the outline of the the shark there. So I'm going to move this here. Right, so this is what the shark looks like. It looks pretty neat. If you want to make this fit better English, you can do Control T and it'll automatically fit. You can also right click and play with the zoom option here. I usually do zoom to optimal fit. Now, the next thing to do is you can try this is to do a noise exterminator. For this, I use a very low amount, so like 0.25% denoise, but sometimes I'll actually save this for the very end, like after stretching. Because I get better results. I know it's probably better to get rid of the noise before you stretch it, but sometimes it just doesn't work for me. So try this out with and without and see what you get. For me, I'm just going to leave this as is and not do a pre-stretch noise, but the icon will stay here just to tell you that this is one of the steps that I would normally follow. Next thing is to stretch them. There are a couple ways to do them, or a few ways to do them, and the two that I like a lot is GHS, or Generalized Hyperbolic Stretch, which is a slow stretch, and MAS, which is the Multi-Scale Adaptive Stretch. I found that the Multi-Scale Adaptive Stretch works a little bit better when you have stars in your images. So if you didn't do Star X or Star Net to remove your stars, try playing with the Multi-Scale Adaptive Stretch, because the contrast recovery I found that works a little bit better with the stars still in the image. So for this video, I'm just going to tell you that MAS is an option, but I'm not going to use this. I'm going to do GHS because I believe it gives me a lot more control over what I'm controlling over the image, what I'm stretching in the image. So I have GHS open. Before we do anything else, I am going to click on a random spot, like a background area of here, and I'm going to click Send to SP. side we have a little symmetry point value. I'm going to open STF and then make sure I click on this little reset icon on the bottom right. Make sure you click on this. If it doesn't reset, click on the stretch again and then reset again, because it's probably stuck to an older instance of STF. Once this is done, I'm going to click on this little preview circle. And then now I can start stretching. And I said this is a slow stretch, so I'm going to be slowly moving the stretch factor and the local intensity under these transformation type generalized hyperbolic until I get the histogram to like a third, 2/3 of the way, a little bit past half point over here. And then click on apply. After you click on apply, you'll get something like this. It's because the histogram moved all the way there, so you need to click on reset and then change the transformation type to linear. Let's move the black point a little bit so that it's a little bit darker in the background, but you don't want to clip it, so keep your eye on the clipping value here. So once you're satisfied, you click on apply and then reset one more time. Under generalized hyperbolic, I'm going to click on a random dark area, send to SP, and then we're just going to do this a couple of times until we get something that we enjoy. And I'm going to move the symmetry point so that it looks a little bit better. I think I'm good with this. You don't want to overcook it, so I'll click apply and then close this. All right, so now this is very noisy, but don't worry, we'll fix that soon. So now what I want to do is I want to click on this blur exterminator. So I'm going to do a sharpen non-stellar just to get some contrast around this area. And then I'm just going to move this over. It's very small, 0.29 sharpen non-stellar, and not doing any stellar adjustments at all. Okay, so there we go. I'm mostly interested in this reflection nebula area here, so you can see before and after. It's like very, very slight adjustments. Great. So now I'm actually going to go a little bit out of order. Before I do curves and selective color correction, I'm going to do my noise X pre-stretch, where I separate the color separation and the frequency separation, and then I'm just setting it to somewhat high and see if we can clean up some of the noise here. All right, there we go. It looks so much better. So you can see before and after. Great. Okay, so now I can play with the curves a little bit. Open a curves transformation, click on the little preview window, and now I can start playing with this to see if I can get some detail and contrast out of this. I'll adjust the lightness. As you can see, as I do this, there's like a lot of nebulosity around here that probably would have been removed if I did DBE. But luckily, from a dark area here, I didn't need to worry about that too much. There we go. The goal is to try and not overcook it. So I have this now. I'm satisfied with this. You can make further adjustments, and I'll probably do another noise X later. We can make further adjustments with a script called Selective Color Correction. You can also get this. It's part of, I'll have the links to these repos in the description, but it's also under Toolbox Selective Color Corrections. But since this works like this, I can also click on the Apply Global, and it'll open up here. All right, so once this opens up, one thing I like doing is targeting the yellow, because there's a lot of yellow here, believe it or not, especially in the dusty nebula. So once you select the mask as yellow, you can click on Show Mask, and it'll show you exactly what it'll affect. So you click on Unshow Mask, and then you can apply some luminance to make that kind of glow. There you go. You can see it starts to pop. Yeah. So I'm going to play with the luminance, saturation, and color a little bit. Maybe even just the yellow complementary color sensors, trying to get some interesting color out of this. That's going to be too much, but I'm not going to talk through most of this. I'll speed through this. If there's any interest in seeing something specific about the selective color correction later on, do let me know, but just know that I'm going to be going through each of the colors, playing around with the complementary and RGB colors, sliders, and the luminance, saturation, contrast, trying to make this look something that I like. And then once you have something, you click on this little preview changed up button here to see what it looked like before and after. And then once you're satisfied, you click on apply, and it'll apply your changes to there, to the image. And then you select another mask like red, and this resets here. So I'm going to do the same thing with red. And then I'll do the blue here. And the one thing I'll show you is you can also play with the mask settings here. So like if I click on blue, this is what I want to affect, but it also selects a lot of the background. So you can play with like the shadows and the highlights so that it removes those points, or removes the highlights if that's what you're trying to avoid. You can also play with the balance and the smoothness. Smoothness is kind of like a feathering option here. And then intensity is how much of an intensity do you want this mask to be, like this. So I usually leave that as 1. And then I'll click on show mask. And then I can play with the settings here and see what we can see. So now I'm playing with the low saturation a little bit to make it pop a little bit more. It's going to be like no green, some green there. We do have some magenta here that I can try and get rid of later on. And then with shadows, you can increase or decrease the contrast to make it blend in to the background or pop a little bit more. So I'm just going to blend it in a little bit more with the increasing contrast. And you can see a before and after, just very subtle. And then once you're done with everything, you click on apply, you can click on this little checkbox or the cross to close it up. And then it looks good. There's lots of noise here, so I'm going to do another kind of strong noise exterminator. Setting this pretty arbitrarily, and then let's run that. All right, that looks pretty clean actually. So if I go back and forth, you can see, yeah, that looks really nice. It may look a little bit splotchy, but once we start to add the stars back in, it kind of all just blends in, becomes kind of magic. All right, and that's what we're gonna do next. Before you do that, you can actually go back and do some more additional curves adjustments if that's what you want to do. You can also do a little bit more blur X to try and get some more definition here, or even a stronger noise exterminator if you didn't like the last look. Maybe I'll do that. All right, that looks pretty good actually. The goal is to make sure you don't overcook it so that it doesn't look too smooth, but it looks pretty good. It's like a tiny galaxy over there. There's another galaxy like here off screen. It did not frame that properly. Okay. Other thing we can do right now, so there's some magenta here. So one trick that a friend of mine recently reminded me of is to invert this. So you can do Control-Shift-I, or you can go to Image and Invert. Sorry, Control-I, Image and Invert. These turn into green, and then you can do SCNR or Remove Green. Remove that, so that kind of disappears, and then do Control-I again or Image Invert. You can see that those greens just kind of disappear. So I think this looks pretty good. So the next thing we want to do is we want to attack our stars. So these look good, but we want to make them look even better. And for this, I like using SETI Astro Star Stretch. Super easy, but you can use GHS if you want, or even basic histogram stretch. But Star Stretch is here. Unfortunately, this script doesn't work in global context. You say it doesn't work, so I put this here as a reminder. So to use this, you have to go to Script, SETI Astro, and then you do Star Stretch. And I'm going to select my stars, automatically selected. I'll click on Show Preview. Let's see what that looks like. Actually looks pretty nice, but I'm going to stretch this a little bit more. And then give it some more color. And then refresh preview. That looks good, and then I'll execute. That looks great. So now let's add things back in, and I like using a script called Image Blend. Again, link will be in the description for this repository. Click on the global context. You can also find this under Script, Utilities, and Image Blend. So for the first view here, you want to select your image. So I probably should name these a little bit better. Start leaving it at image 01. And for the blend image, you want to make sure you select your stars. And then in the blend mode, instead of replace, set it to screen. I usually have that, but I just reset this whole thing. And there you go. Like with the stars back in, it looks kind of like magical, right? Like a lot of any kind of imperfections you see kind of just disappear. Things look okay. You can also play with the black point highlights for both of these settings to make things pop a little bit more, like moving the black point makes the background darker. I'll do it like 5%. You can decrease the highlights. It'll make the nebulosity pop a little bit more. So I'll probably set that to like 90%. If you want to make the stars a little bit smaller, you can adjust the black point here. I'm just going to do aggressive to show you what I mean. So you can see that goes away. But for stars, black point, I'll leave it as if, unless I have some really massive stars, which I don't here. And you can also play with the highlights here to make them brighter, make them pop a little bit more, which I don't really want to do because you see the little binary star here in the eyes, it kind of messes up. But this actually looks really nice, and I'm going to click on this check mark. It created one in the background here, so you can actually, while this is open, you can actually continue to play with these and create different versions of this. You can create a little box here, left click and drag. If you click on this little box, click here, click on this little box, and it zooms in for you so you can see exactly what's happening. So this little blue area here, I blew that out, so that's my fault. And you double click it to get out of here. So to fix that, I'm actually gonna set the highlights back to 1, so I don't want to make the nebulosity brighter, and I can go back in and it looks a lot better. So I'll click on the green check mark. It'll create another image blend for me. I'll close this. Now I have 2 of these. You can see this one, this was blown out. So this is my first version. I'm gonna close it out. So this is what I have. If you compare it to my other image, so this is like what's getting printed for an art show, you can see it looks pretty similar, pretty good. Let me actually open that in here. It's a PNG. They look very similar. I will say that in this image here, in this version here, I spent a lot more time trying to get all of the colors and everything pop a little bit better. So, but you know, like this area looks a lot better than here as well. So this is just all about playing with settings, playing with the sliders, seeing what works for you, what doesn't work for you, and then making adjustments. I hope that was helpful, and if you have other ways that you'd like to process dark nebula, I would love to hear from you, so let me know in the comments below. If you'd like to support me and the work that I do on this channel, consider checking me out on Patreon, on Buy Me a Coffee, and here on YouTube, and join this group of wonderful people. I have some exciting videos coming up over the next couple of months. If you are not subscribed yet, consider subscribing, hit the like button, and share this video with your astro friends. And until next time, clear skies.